Millions pay off their mortgage early and feel victorious, until they open their retirement account and find almost nothing there. By the end, the math will be clear. Stay with this sentence. So will the exact years and turning points that define you. The feeling is legitimate. No payment. No bank. No debt. The house is yours, completely finally. That sense of relief, of solid ground beneath your feet, is real. But a feeling is not a retirement plan, and those two things are not the same thing. David is not careless. David is not uninformed. David is doing exactly what his father told him to do. Save steadily, avoid debt, trust the pension. He is disciplined, intentional, and working from a playbook that is one full generation too old. At 54, David carries $187,000 left on his mortgage and $94,000 sitting in his 401k. He decides to send an extra $800 a month directly toward the house principal instead. That's nearly $10,000 a year. Just stop and think about that math for a moment. That $800 a month has two possible destinations. One grows, compounds, and benefits from decades of tax-sheltered returns. The other just reduces a number on a statement, then it's gone forever. And here's what I want you to think about. Which one of those actually builds real retirement income? A 7% mortgage does not actually cost you 7% if you itemize deductions on your federal return. For many households in this income range, the real after-tax cost lands closer to 5.2%. The market has historically returned roughly twice that number. The IRS effectively subsidizes mortgage interest for households that itemize deductions. Most people in this income range do exactly that. That means the government is quietly covering a real portion of your monthly mortgage cost, and most people never factor that in. Over 30 years, the S&P 500 has averaged roughly 10.5% annually. After taxes, a standard mortgage may cost closer to 5%. That 5.5-point spread, compounded steadily over 15 years, is the difference between a funded retirement and one built entirely on hope. Debt feels like danger. That is wired in. For the generation that raised most of us, carrying debt was a moral failing, a source of shame, not a financial tool. That wiring is completely understandable. Here is the part most people miss. It is also, in this specific context, genuinely expensive. After 50, the IRS allows an extra $7,500 per year in catch-up 401k contributions. That window does not reopen. Every year it goes unfilled is a year gone permanently, compounding loss forever. And David was filling the mortgage instead of filling that account. David paid off his house at 61. He was proud, and right to be. But his retirement account held just $141,000. His neighbor, who kept the mortgage and maxed his 401k every single year, had quietly built $387,000. Same starting line, same income. Vastly different finish. Same salary. Same age. Same neighborhood. Same grocery store even. The only variable was where $800 a month went for 8 years. Stop and think about that for a second. One quiet decision, repeated monthly, slowly separating two retirements by nearly $250,000. $800 a month, 15 years, 9% average return, that's not a prediction, it's just arithmetic. And if you've ever felt that pull to just pay off the house and be done with it, I get it, but run the numbers first. The result? Roughly $330,000 in total investment gains versus $127,000 saved by paying off your mortgage early. That's a $200,000 difference. Let that sink in. The gap between those two outcomes, $330,000 versus $127,000, is roughly $200,000. That's not a rounding error or a footnote. That's a full decade of retirement income for a household spending $20,000 a year on essentials like housing, food, and basic health care. It deserves to be named plainly. Home equity is real, but it's essentially trapped. It can't pay a medical bill or cover lost income next month. To access it, you must sell, refinance, or borrow against it. Every single option takes time and costs money. At 64, David's wife needs emergency surgery, $34,000 out of pocket. Write down that number, $141,000. That's what sits in his retirement account, but early withdrawal triggers a 10% penalty plus income taxes. His $380,000 in home equity sits locked away unless he opens a HELOC, refinances, or sells the house entirely. A HELOC sounds like a solution. It is, at best, a workaround with real costs attached, variable rates, lender fees, and income-based approval requirements that tighten precisely when retirement begins. You are borrowing back money that was never worth sending ahead early. Owning a home free and clear doesn't make it free. Property taxes, insurance, repairs, maintenance, they never stop coming. A paid-off house sitting on a thin retirement account isn't a zero-cost asset. It's a cost center with nothing left to offset it month after month. Roughly 35% of homeowners over 60 with no mortgage still report cash flow stress within 5 years of retirement. Most people assume that eliminating the mortgage payment solves the monthly money problem. It turns out the reverse is what tends to catch retirees off guard. The house is paid off. The checking account is nearly empty. That painful outcome has a name. The plan that looked right on paper but forgot about living expenses. Retiring into a market downturn with $450,000 invested and $60,000 left on a mortgage still gives you options. Retiring with $180,000 invested and a clear title gives you almost none. The portfolio can absorb the shock and recover. The locked-up equity simply cannot. A fixed mortgage payment does not change. Inflation does. A $1,400 monthly payment in 2015 costs far less in real purchasing power by 2030. That's the silent bonus of long-term borrowing. Paying it off early surrenders that shrinking cost advantage forever. Let that sink in. David paid off the house, a real milestone. But those mortgage payments had quietly consumed the extra savings he needed to delay Social Security. Stay with that for a second. He filed at 62. Not because he wanted to. Because the cash cushion simply wasn't there anymore. Filing at 62 versus 67 can mean $1,200 a month instead of $2,100. Over a 20-year retirement, that difference compounds to $348,000. Not in volatile investments. In guaranteed, inflation-adjusted lifetime income you cannot outlive. Just sit with that math for a moment, because most people never do. Delaying Social Security requires a cash bridge, typically 3 to 5 years of living expenses, kept accessible and liquid. The person who chose the market over the mortgage is far more likely to have that cushion sitting ready. The person who did not, simply does not. There is a rate threshold where this calculus flips completely. A 9% mortgage in a low-return environment is fundamentally different from a 3% mortgage with full market access. The decision depends entirely on that spread. Have you ever actually sat down and calculated what that spread looks like for your own situation? Most people never do. Millions of Americans locked in rates below 4% between 2020 and 2022. Paying off a 3.1% mortgage early, when markets historically return 10% annually, is simply giving money away. Mathematically, emotionally, there's just no softer way to say it. The paid-off home feels safe. That feeling is completely real. But genuine safety in retirement means monthly income that does not stop, no matter what. A paid-off home that produces no income is not that, however powerfully it feels like it. Roughly 46% of Americans between 55 and 64 have less than $100,000 saved in retirement accounts. Many own homes. Many of those homes paid off or nearly so. The equity is real and often substantial. Here is the part most people miss. The reliable monthly income in retirement, though, is simply not there. It is hard to question a decision that everyone around you calls responsible. Paying off debt is responsible. It is also, in specific financial circumstances, the wrong move. Like when your interest rate is 3%. Those two things can both be true. The question is never simply whether to pay off the mortgage. The real question is, given your specific rate, your tax bracket, your age, and your current balance, where does this exact dollar produce the most long-term retirement income? Before a single extra dollar reaches the mortgage, the employer match must be captured first. A 100% immediate return is exactly what full employer match represents. No mortgage payoff at any interest rate beats that guarantee return. None. Ever. A credit card charging 22% is not a mortgage. It is not an investment question at all. And if you have ever watched a balance barely budge despite making payments, you already know exactly what I mean. It is a guaranteed loss that compounds against you every single month, silently eroding everything else. That stops before anything else in this framework even applies. After the match and after consumer debt, the priority is filling every dollar of tax-advantaged space. The 401k, the IRA, the HSA if you have one, the catch-up contributions after 50. That space, once missed for a given year, does not reopen. Ever. Take your mortgage rate. Subtract the tax benefit if you itemize. Compare what remains to a conservative long-term market return, something like 7%. If the market return is higher, that dollar belongs in the market, not your mortgage. That is the entire calculation. Nothing more. At 45 with 20 years ahead, the math strongly favors staying in the market. At 62, with just 3 years to retirement, that balance shifts considerably. Write those two ages, 45 and 62, because your time horizon changes everything here. There is truly no single right answer that applies universally at every age. In the 5 years before retirement, the logic begins to bend. A guaranteed return from eliminating a 6.5% mortgage grows more defensible when sequence risk is imminent. One bad market year can permanently derail a portfolio. But only after retirement accounts are fully funded. That condition still matters enormously. A retirement account is not truly fully funded until it can sustain 25 times your annual retirement expenses. At $60,000 a year in spending, target lands at $1.5 million. Most people aggressively paying off their mortgage are nowhere near that number. Not even close to halfway there. Ages 60 to 70 are the prime window for Roth conversions, when income dips before Social Security kicks in. Most people think paying off the mortgage early is the safe, responsible move during those years. The reverse is actually what costs you. That window requires cash on hand to cover the tax bill, and if you spend it accelerating mortgage payoff instead, you can never reclaim the conversion opportunity. Between 57 and 62, David had 5 years of unusually low income, a perfect Roth conversion window. But every spare dollar was going toward the house renovation. He missed it entirely. The tax cost was invisible in the moment, until it became permanent. At 73, the IRS requires mandatory withdrawals from traditional retirement accounts, fully taxable, whether that income is needed or not. A well-funded Roth, built strategically during the conversion window, significantly reduces that burden. A depleted account simply does not. Home equity counts as net worth. It does not count as retirement income. A house worth $480,000 with no mortgage feeds no one until it is sold or borrowed against. Read that twice. A reverse mortgage carries fees. Downsizing takes time. Neither option is free or simple. Selling and downsizing is viable for some people, but it is not a reliable emergency lever. Agent commissions, closing costs, moving expenses, and a market that does not always cooperate, these can take months to resolve. This is not a liquid asset. It is a lengthy process. A reverse mortgage is what happens when the plan did not work. It is a product built for people whose equity is their only remaining resource. No pension, no savings, no fallback. It should not be the destination of a deliberate strategy. Notice carefully what that means. In a two-income household, this decision scales up dramatically. Two salaries together producing $1,600 monthly in extra mortgage payments means $1,600 from the market every single month. And here's something worth sitting with. Can you see how the retirement gap doesn't just double, it more than doubles, because compounding amplifies every additional dollar over time? For a single-income household, the fear driving early payoff is completely understandable. One income, one health crisis, one job loss, and everything unravels. But the answer is not locking money in walls. It is building a liquid buffer, think 6 months of expenses, that can actually absorb the shock. The average retired couple spends over $300,000 on healthcare after 65. That covers premiums, co-pays, prescriptions, and long care. That money comes from cash, investments, and Social Security, not home equity. Your house won't write that check. Let that sink in. Inflation raises your grocery bill regardless of your mortgage status. A larger portfolio, repositioned into inflation-sensitive assets like tips, commodities, or dividend growth stocks, actively defends your purchasing power over time. And here is the part most people miss. A paid-off home simply cannot do that. Most financial advisors will not fight a client emotionally resolved to pay off the house. The conflict simply isn't worth the relationship tension. But that professional silence carries a real price. The client pays it quietly over decades. The advisor does not. The generation that built this country's financial common sense lived through bank failures and market collapses. Their advice, own the house, own nothing, was absolutely right for their world. But that world no longer exists. The economy has fundamentally changed. The advice somehow has not. The instinct to avoid debt is not wrong. The discipline to live below your means is genuinely valuable. And if you have ever felt that quiet satisfaction of watching your mortgage balance drop, I get it, that feeling is real. But applying that discipline through aggressive mortgage payoff instead of investment contribution is a misfire in execution. Wrong tool, wrong priority, for this era, at these historically low interest rates. Susan kept her mortgage, never loved it, but maxed her 401k every single year from 52 to 66. She held a low-rate loan with just 4 years left, built $610,000 in investments, and planned to delay Social Security until 68 to lock in a higher monthly benefit. Susan didn't need Social Security income immediately, so she could choose exactly when to file. 3 years of low-rate Roth conversions lay ahead of her. $1,000 in liquid savings sat outside her 401k, ready to bridge any gap. Real options take years to build. She had built them. Both retire at 66 with identical income histories and similar salaries. David, $141,000 saved, house paid off, $1,200 monthly from Social Security, serious cash flow stress within 3 years. Susan, $610,000 invested, a low-rate mortgage remaining, $2,050 in unclaimed Social Security benefits. Write down that $910,000 gap, because that number tells the whole story. Same age, same earnings, opposite outcomes. The house is real. The ownership is real. But property that produces no income can't be liquidated quickly and costs money every single month to maintain, taxes, insurance, repairs, isn't retirement security. It's a beautiful, expensive place to live. 3 questions before sending extra money to your mortgage. First, is your employer match fully captured? That's an instant 100% return. Second, are tax-advantaged accounts maxed? Third, does your mortgage rate beat conservative long-term market returns after taxes? If the first 2 are no, pay the mortgage last. Before any of this, employer match, mortgage, investments, the emergency fund comes first. Most people treat it like the last box to check, something you get to once the exciting stuff is handled. The reality runs completely opposite. It's the condition that makes everything else actually work. 6 months of expenses minimum, 12 if you're within a decade of retirement. Think rent, groceries, utilities, fully covered. It's not the reward at the end. If retirement accounts are fully funded, the employer match is captured, and your emergency fund is solid, and your mortgage rate genuinely exceeds the after-tax market return, say 7% versus 6%, paying extra toward the mortgage isn't just acceptable. It's actually the right call. Peace of mind has real value. If carrying a mortgage causes genuine anxiety, affecting your sleep, your health, or your daily work, paying it down early may well be worth the financial cost. Just make sure you know what the cost actually is, and then choose deliberately. Choosing the paid-off house over a larger portfolio isn't foolish, if it's an actual choice. What makes it costly is when it happens by default. Pause here. No one ran the numbers, no comparison was ever made, and quiet momentum simply replaced deliberate math. $200,000 in lost investment growth. $348,000 in reduced lifetime Social Security income. 35% of mortgage-free retirees in cash flow stress within 5 years. These are not projections or warnings. They are documented, repeating patterns. Compounding does not negotiate. It rewards the dollar invested earliest, longest, most consistently. Every year a dollar spends reducing a low-rate mortgage instead of compounding inside a tax-advantaged account is a year of lost growth it can never recover. Sit with that for a moment. If you're between 50 and 60, the window is still open, but closing. And here's something worth sitting with. What would it actually mean to redirect what you already have, rather than starting over from scratch? Because catch-up contributions, Roth conversions, Social Security delay strategies, none of these require starting over. They require redirecting. That's still possible. Not forever. But right now, today, house paid off, retirement savings thin, constrained, not hopeless. Max out catch-up contributions now. Delay Social Security as long as cash flow allows. The past decision is already made. Your response to it is not. This is a household decision with a household consequence. Both partners need to understand the trade-off in plain numbers, not jargon. Sit down together. What does this choice actually mean for the monthly income you'll both live on for the next 25 or 30 years? When you're helping adult children and accelerating mortgage payoffs simultaneously, 2 drains hit the same pool of extra income. Neither one builds retirement security. Both feel emotionally justified in the moment. Meanwhile, your retirement account sees absolutely nothing new going in. Let that sink in. A fully funded retirement isn't selfishness, it's the most generous thing a parent can do. The alternative is a retirement that runs dry and forces your adult children to cover your bills, becoming a financial burden on the very people you are trying to protect. No endowment, no pension fund, no institutional investor pays off low-rate fixed debt while leaving higher-returning investments on the table. They understand arbitrage clearly. Individual investors routinely ignore it, largely because nobody ever explains it in plain, kitchen table numbers they can actually use. Extra mortgage payments matter most in the loan's first decade, when nearly every dollar goes to interest rather than principal. By year 20, that balance naturally shifts. Paying extra at year 22 has far less impact than most borrowers ever realize. Paying off a mortgage with only 8 years left saves far less interest than one with 22 years remaining. By the time most people start repaying aggressively, the bulk of lifetime interest savings have already passed, but the opportunity cost of that capital certainly hasn't. A $500,000 portfolio generating 3.5% in dividends produces $17,500 a year, $1,458 a month, in reliable retirement income. That deposit lands in your account every single month, whether markets rise or fall, without selling a single share. Home equity simply cannot do that. A resilient retirement income stack has layers. Social Security, delayed to 67 or 70 for maximum benefit. Portfolio income, drawn from a well-funded investment account. A cash buffer, liquid and immediately accessible. Each layer is deliberately built with money that, for some people, went straight to the mortgage instead. The next 10 years matter more to your retirement than the previous 30. Not because of market returns, because of where every dollar goes. Catch-up contribution. Compounding runway. Social Security timing. Healthcare cost planning. Every major variable gets decided in this one decade.